Chapter 6 Wake Times and Naps. We talked about the changing cycles as your baby moves from early infancy to 1 year old. The first half of this chapter, Chapter 6, is designed to talk about the various activities that should be part of your baby's wake time. And the second half of the chapter will cover naps and nap challenges. By the end of this chapter, you should be able to find solutions to most of the feed-wake-sleep challenges that you will face. Now, before we get into wake time activities, let's look at the two facts. Fact number 1. Babies are born extremely nearsighted, which means they can't focus on objects at a distance. Your baby's eyesight gradually improves and normally becomes 20/20 when they turn 2 years old. You may want to wait 3 to 4 months before adding bright, colorful pictures so they can enjoy themselves. Fact number 2. We just learned from the fact number 1 above that it takes 3 to 4 months after birth for a baby to be able to focus. You might want to hold off until then before introducing a crib mobile. Crib gyms and mobiles helps the baby's hand-eye coordination when the baby bats the objects. Batting is a necessary preparation for a baby to reach out and hold objects in his hands. Now let's dive into the first part of this chapter, wake time activities. We already covered in chapter 1 about how physical touch is important to the baby. It is your baby's first language and helps them feel secure. We also talked about couch time chapter 1. You might want to revisit my chapter 1 summary if you want to recall more details. So having some physical touches and kisses can be some great wake time activities. Singing or talking. My personal experiences also tell me that singing songs with my infant kids makes them feel secure, happy, and comfortable. Reading. I remember the book Moon, Ba, La 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 by Sandra Boynton. A cow says moon, a sheep says ba, and mimics the animal sounds with my kids. They both loved it. You can also prepare some cloth or plastic books that can survive from the baby. Bath time. This can be fun. You can prepare some rubber duck during bath time that will make your baby laugh. You can also sing and talk to your baby during bath time. Playing and cuddling with siblings and parents. Use cuddling to give your baby a sense of love and security during wake time. Walking your baby in a stroller or a baby backpack. My kids loved it when I took them for a walk to the park. They love the sun and love seeing other people's dogs. They sometimes even make happy sounds when they see dogs. My husband does the same, but he likes using a baby backpack or front pouch baby carrier. When the weather is too bad outside, taking your baby to the indoor mall can also serve the same purpose. Now note the baby backpack or baby carrier is not the infant side sling. There are many ways to keep your baby close to you, but the side sling is very dangerous. The side sling puts your baby positioned in a C-curve. This increases the risks of infant suffocation. The position blocks the baby's breathing, which leads to suffocation. Also, when a baby in the early weeks, he or she might have weak neck muscles. And when cradled in a curved or C-like position, this makes the infant hard to breathe and hard to move his head, kick legs, or crying for help. So make sure you make the right decision picking the baby carrier. I will link some of the good baby carriers that we used for our baby in this video description in case you're interested. We all loved playing with the babies, but sometimes we also need to train the baby the ability to play with themselves. When parents are doing that, they should not leave the baby out of sight though, but we should provide them opportunities to investigate their world without being constantly entertained. This provides convenience to the parents and also good for the baby's growth. This is a gradual process, and we can start with some of the basic infant helping tools to help us achieving that goal. Infant seat. Now the infant seat can mean infant car seat, but here for our wake time activities purposes, infant seat means a basic infant seat which is portable and elevates the baby just enough to view his small world. You can put the baby in the infant seat in front of a glass door so he can see outside. The baby can even take a nap in the infant seat in the early weeks. Bouncy seat. This is designed for the baby who can hold his head upright without support, usually at 3 to 4 months. Keeping the baby in the bouncy seat for 10 to 15 minutes after each feeding can also help reflux. You can also put your baby at the bouncy seat so he can watch you clean the kitchen or prepare food or other house chores. Tummy time. This can begin once the baby is able to hold his head up consistently, which usually happens between 12 and 16 weeks. Most pediatricians recommend 30 cumulative minutes or longer of tummy time each day. You can do tummy time on a blanket or even on mom or dad's chest. Tummy time is perfect shortly after feeding when the babies are alert and happy, not before a nap, when he's tired and may fall asleep. Infant swing. The reclining option works well if you use the swing after feeding your baby, since this takes pressure off his full tummy. Infant swing is good, but you should watch and not get into the habit of letting your baby fall asleep in a swing. Set the rocking motion at a stronger mode for fussy babies and slower speed for non-fussy times. Exercise. Once your baby is able to sit up and demonstrates good head and neck control, the exercise is another fun wake time activity to try, as it has an activity center which has lots of toys to explore. This also helps strengthen his leg muscles as he pushes and moves in the exerciser. The bumble seat. Its shape helps babies to transition from lying on their tummy to sitting up on their own. When using it, do not put the seat in an elevated location such as a chair or table. It is best to place this on the floor surrounded by safe objects. The bumble seat actually offers no real benefit once the baby is able to sit up by himself. Playpen. By 6 weeks, a baby can benefit by spending some wake time in a bouncy seat placed inside the playpen in view of a mobile. Me and my husband especially loved the playpen among many wake time tools. This allows us more time to care for our oldest and busy with other tasks. It provides a more secure play environment as long as the objects inside the playpen are safe for the baby. The smaller playpen can also be a portable bed when you are traveling occasionally with a baby. Now we are going to discuss nap time challenges and basic sleep needs. Last chapter, we talked about the emerging specific guidelines for the feed-wake sleep transition from newborn to 1-year-old. Next, we are going to do a quick summary of nap and wake time before diving into the nap challenges. Here's a copy of the general sleep guide for the first year that I copied from the book. Newborns spend most of their time sleeping during the day. After feeding, and many times during the feeding, signs of sleepiness, such as eyes rubbing, yawning, or tugging on his hair will show up, and that means it is time to go to bed. Gradually, wake time starts to emerge as a distinct activity as we discussed in the last chapter. Around 3 months of age, babies begin sleeping throughout the night, and they may wake earlier from his nap or suddenly wake early in the first strategic morning feeding. We will talk about the reasons why this happens and some solutions to solve the problems through the rest of this chapter. Now, naps and crying. When put in bed alone, most babies will cry. This is very common, but parents should also be concerned. Here are some facts to remember. Crying for 10, 15, or even 20 minutes will not harm your baby physically or emotionally. Your baby will not feel depressed or a depressed tendency when they grow to 30 years of age, nor will your baby experience an IQ drop. Actually, some crying is necessary and good. Here's why. It is a fact of nature that most babies will learn to fall asleep sooner and sleep longer if left to cry for a little while. They will also learn the useful skill of soothing themselves. If a baby is truly tired, his crying will be very short. I know even a short period of baby crying is very hard, and it is even more difficult with the decision to let him cry a few more minutes. But just thinking of a little crying as investment toward a long-term lucrative gain for the baby will help a little bit. We have to understand the difference between a tired versus a fatigued baby. Although one day's suspension of a baby's routine does not create a fatigued baby, several days of continual disruption to a baby's routine probably will make a baby fatigued. When this happens, we can temporarily suspend or give up the independent part of your baby to sleep. The priority is for parents to find a non-stressful way to establish the baby's circadian rhythm. It is recommended that mom find a comfortable chair and a good book and allow the baby to take a nap in her arms. You can do this for 2 days. However, naps return to the crib on the 3rd day. You are not creating a sleeping prop, since this adjustment is only for a couple of days while you help your baby fight his or her fatigue. Prevention is the best way though. Analyze what makes your perfect sleeper become fatigued, where the continual disruption to your baby's routine comes from, and try to avoid that in the best way you can. Now, the challenges associated with sudden disruptions to well-established naptime routines. This is based on the fact that foundations of healthy normative sleep have been achieved in the first place. This means a baby's routine feed-wake sleep cycle is well established, and the baby is already sleeping throughout the night at least 8 hours and routinely napping around 1.5 to 2 hours. Next, we are going to go over some lists of reasons why babies wake earlier from their naps. The lists are broken down by reasons related to the baby, mom, wake time activities, and environment. Now, sleep challenges related to baby. Baby wakes up early because he's hungry. This might happen because the previous full feeding was not successful. He might need more milk calories during the day. You might want to offer more ounces of formula or more feedings if breastfeeding. Ask your baby's pediatrician for how much milk the baby needs throughout different phases. Hunger can disrupt good established sleep routines. Growth spurt. This might last 1 to 4 days. When this happens, try to feed your baby while maintaining the feed-wake sleep routines as best as you can. After this is over, your baby will take longer than normal naps for a few days. You can refer back to my Chapter 4 summaries for more growth spurt information. He might need some solid foods. Any abnormal early waking from naps or nighttime sleep between 4 to 6 months of age might signal solid foods are required for babies who have a well-established nighttime sleep pattern. Some research shows that holding off solids to 5 or 6 months of age may decrease the possibility of food allergies. Now, baby wakes up because he's uncomfortable. He might get sick, teething, has a fever, or ear infection. This will be scary to hear the baby cry because it sounds like he's in pain. Well, first check if the baby has fever. Ears and nose are next. If no redness is good news. Finally, check his mouth. See if there are new teeth. You might want to offer some Tylenol if he's having too much trouble fall asleep, especially before the long hours of nighttime sleep. He has an insect bite or a hair twisted around a toe, which is called tourniquet syndrome. You might also want to check your baby all over, including fingers and toes. Does the baby have any bugs or red skin bumps? There is also a very rare condition called toe tourniquet, caused by hair or carpet fiber wrapped around a baby's fingers and toes. It is hard to notice it, but it eventually begins to tighten and cut off circulation to the appendage, causing swelling, inflammation, and pain. It is very rare, but it does alert you to the need for a check over your baby's whole body. The baby is uncomfortable because he might be too cold or too hot. I always keep my baby too warm, and my husband is the opposite by keeping our baby too cold. So check if your baby is sweating or touch his hands or feet to see if it's too cold. He's uncomfortable because he might have a diaper rash. Keeping the baby's butt moisturized is key, especially after some diarrhea episodes. Baby's tummy is troubling him. He might have a mild or delayed cause of reflux. There is more information about reflux in Chapter 8. Reflux symptoms may not be present at birth and may not show up for several weeks. You will know if your baby is suffering reflux because it will show up throughout the day, not just during naps. Keep the baby upright for some time following each feeding. Also, elevate the head of the crib by 2 inches, allowing gravity to prevent stomach acids from moving back to the baby's esophagus while the baby is sleeping. He's having an allergic reaction to a new baby food. There are 2 rules for this. First, never introduce multiple new food types at the same time to your baby, so you will not have to guess which food caused the allergic reaction should one occur. Second, always introduce new food earlier in the day. Breakfast is the ideal. That is because when you start a new food with your baby at noon or dinner, you run the risk of pushing the food allergic reaction to the middle of the night, and the baby's nighttime sleep will be disturbed. So is yours. It is good practice to find out if there is a history of food allergies from both sides of the family. If there is history, there is a higher probability that your baby will be challenged by food allergies. He's struggling with a bowel movement. He might be waking up because he needs a burp. Baby woke up because he startled himself, the startle reflex. Sometimes you can just let the baby to resettle himself. Sometimes he might need some petting. He rolled over and doesn't know how to roll back. Use a baby camera so you can see when the baby is crying in the crib. He lost his pacifier and cannot resettle without it. If you can train your baby suck his fingers when there is no pacifier available, this problem will be solved. Baby is waking up early because he's starting a sleep nap transition. If the baby is extending his nighttime sleep, that will affect daytime naps. When your baby is extending nighttime sleep from 10 hours to 12 hours, this will impact his or her daytime naps because the baby's body will not allow him to oversleep. His body doesn't require as much sleep in a 24-hour period, thus impacting naps. Normally, babies don't subtract hours from nighttime sleep, but from daytime sleep. That means wake times during the day are extending and the number of naps decreases. You might want to add more wake time activities during the day. Sleep challenges related to mom. Baby wakes up earlier from naps because the previous feeding proved to be inadequate, and thus the baby is waking early. Mom's milk supply has gradually decreased. The decrease in mom's milk supply is typically gradual, and thus the baby gradually shifts nap duration. The baby might start waking just 15 minutes early, and then 30 to 45 minutes, and then 60 minutes earlier. During the long stretch of sleep at night, mom is able to produce a sufficient quantity of milk for the morning, but mom will not be able to sustain the production throughout the day. Possible causes for lower milk production include mom is not offering enough feeding in 24 hours. Cluster feeding results in a fatigued mom because too many feedings. Mom is too busy and not getting enough rest. Mom is on a special diet and not taking sufficient calories or liquids. Mom is on medication that suppresses lactation. Whatever the cause, mom should take corrective action to control. If she determines that she can't provide the baby enough nutrition through exclusive breastfeeding, then she can supplement with formula. Mom's diet is affecting the nursing baby. Baby has a reaction to a new medication mom is taking. Mom should not assume that a medication safely taken during pregnancy is always safe for a nursing baby. Mom should also check the prescription dosage with her doctor. Is it possible to reduce the dosage or substitute with a different drug that might have less impact on the baby? Lastly, try the best to take the medicine right after feeding the baby, so mom can metabolize most of the medication during the baby's nighttime sleep. The nursing baby is getting too much lactose from mom. This happens when mom is producing more milk than her baby needs. Then the baby's intake of formilk and high milk ratio changes. The baby will be satiated from the milk mostly from formilk. Since formilk is high in lactose but lower in fat than high milk, the result is too much lactose entering the baby's digestive system, causing stomach pain, watery stools, and disrupting the baby's nap times. The possible solution would be mom pumping some milk from both breasts prior to feeding to help remedy the problem. That will remove some formilk, so when the baby eats, he will receive a closer to normal formilk and high milk ratio. Mom's schedule was rushed, so she did not allow enough time for a baby to receive a full feeding. Remember to always allow some extra time for the baby to take a full feeding. Sleep challenges related to activities that contribute to baby waking early. Previous wake time was too short. When a baby gets too much sleep, he will wake up early from one or all naps. Parents should adjust their baby's schedule to allow longer wake times. Previous wake time was overstimulating to baby because the wake time was too long, thus the baby is fatigued and not just the sleepiness. Wake time was too overstimulating. For example, placing the baby in front of the TV too much, or the baby is exposed too much to dad's loud friends as they watch sporting events. Baby's routine has too much flexibility. For example, mom is running too many errands and the baby is constantly taking cat naps in the car. Cat naps in the car seat are no substitute for a full nap in the crib. When the baby is along with the ride, too many different sights and sounds and the absence of predictability all work against the good nap behavior. Occasional cat nap is fine, but it should not be the norm, especially during the first 6 months of your baby's life. First feeding of the day has too much flexibility. Don't forget the first and last strategic feeding times from the last chapter. No consistent first morning feeding will work against stabilizing the baby's hunger metabolism and will eventually affect the length of baby's nap time. Did not follow the correct feed, wake, sleep order. The out-of-order routine is not healthy feeding cycles, thus the baby is constantly waking too early. Sleep challenges related to the environment. Babies not being exposed to adequate amount of daylight. Natural light helps babies regulate their circadian clock. It is recommended that parents take the baby to a room filled with daylight as soon as the baby awakens in the morning. Natural light along with the fixed first feeding will help establish the baby's circadian rhythm and keep them consistent. A baby's room is not dark enough. Like most adults, babies tend to sleep better and longer if the room is darkened. It can be one of the easiest to fix with shades or blackout curtains. Baby is overstimulated in the crib because toys were turned on when he was put down for his nap. Crib mobiles or gears are entertaining, but when set up too early and activated just before nap time, can become a source of overstimulating. Some babies can't neurologically handle movement and sound stimulation. Sometimes mom is watching news in a darkened room and can be a source of overstimulation even when the baby is already asleep at that time. When your baby reaches 6 months of age, he could wake up due to familiar sounds in the home. My son was constantly waking up because he heard his sister playing and he wanted to join. Some babies will continue to go back to sleep, but others might want to fight off sleep in exchange for the next big adventure. Adding a white noise machine in your baby's room can help block some of those noise. Now, sometimes there are reasons that are very unique to your baby's situation. Always try to feed your baby whenever he wakes earlier from his nap. If the baby had no interest in eating, you can rule out hunger as the cause. But if he has a good appetite, then there could be growth spurt or milk supply problems. If it is not a feeding issue, then try to identify the source of the problem and work toward a solution. If you can't find a source, the problem might be temporary and usually fix itself. Last, healthy feed-wake sleep cycles is a key. When there's disruption in your baby's feeding or wake time routine, there will be changes in the sleep pattern as well. Stay on top of it by being as consistent as possible with feeding and age-appropriate wake time activities. Chapter 7. When your baby cries. All babies cry. As a super busy new parent, the least thing you want to hear is probably the baby's crying. When you hear a baby cry, you probably think something's wrong with the baby or with the way you handle your baby. But you should try to use crying as a signal, not as a judgment that you did something wrong to your baby. Do you know that tears from crying helps the baby to eliminate chemically activated stress hormones from the little body? You should also learn to read your baby's cry because it is an intuitive way of communicating need and displeasure in early infancy. The hunger cry is different from the sleepy cry. There are also the cuddle me cries, whimper cries, diaper cries, sick cries, and so on and on. There are typically two extreme theories around the crying topic. Let baby cry it out versus block every cry. We stand in the middle. The first comes with the scheduled or clock feedings. But we shouldn't let the baby cry it out because sometimes there are valid hunger cues or hunger needs, and we can't just ignore that. The latter, the block every cry, comes with attachment parenting, which suppresses all crying driven by the false assumption that a baby's cry reflects anxiety from the trauma sustained at birth. Some interesting research demonstrated that infants who were allowed to cry during the normal times in infancy were vigorous and active problem solvers at 1 year of age. In contrast, the babies whose parents routinely suppressed their cries could not overcome the simplest obstacles, separating them from their parents. They lost all sense of initiative to help themselves. Now, as a parent, you should try to understand your baby's cry. The abnormal crying means something's wrong and you should check your baby, investigate, and look for the root cause during abnormal cries and do not wait. The normal cries are still signals, but for different responses. Abnormal crying means these are not times when a baby should be crying. Generally, there are 3 types of abnormal crying. 1. Crying during feeding. Typically, this means your baby is not getting enough food or the intake of food is too slow. The root cause might be improper latching or milk release issues. 2. Crying immediately after feeding. If your baby cries routinely 30 minutes after feeding and it sounds like that the baby is in pain and different from the baby's typical sleepy cry, then it might be the following reasons. Trapped gas. This is a high-pitched scream as young infants swallow air during feeding. When this happens, burp your baby. Visit my previous chapters for burping positions: shoulder position, lap position, or knee position. Mom's diet. Nursing moms should avoid large quantities of dairy products or spicy foods. You don't have to completely eliminate it, but you might need to cut back from it. A milk quality problem. This is a rare condition that some moms might be able to produce sufficient quantities of milk, but not sufficient quality. If this happens, your pediatrician might recommend a nutritionist. And the third type of normal crying is crying in the middle of a sound nap. If your baby cries strongly in the middle of a sound nap, it might be a combination of any of the three factors above: trapped gas, mom's diet, milk quality problems. It also might be some combination of factors listed in Chapter 6 when we discussed the nap challenges. Always feed your baby first and see if it is a hunger issue, and go from there to find a root cause and work to get a solution. Except those three types of abnormal crying, other cryings are normal and should be expected in your baby's typical day. Those normal cryings include crying just before feeding. This might be a normal hunger cry and typically short because the routine typically follows by mealtime. Crying during the late afternoon or early evening period. This is a personal fussy time for the baby, typically in the late afternoon. Like adults, babies also have blue times during the day. Typically, your baby should be comforted by baby swing, infant seat, siblings, grandmom, or even a crib. Crying when going down for a nap. The American Academy of Pediatrics says many babies cannot fall asleep without crying and will go to sleep more quickly if left to cry for a while. It is also not unusual for a sleeping baby occasionally to whimper or cry softly in the middle of a nap. Sometimes you may think your baby is waking up when she is actually going through a phase of very light slumber. She could be swarming, startling, fussing, or even crying and still be asleep. Or she might be awake but on the verge of drifting off again if left alone. Do not make the mistake of trying to comfort her during those moments. You will only awaken her further and delay her going back to sleep. Instead, if you let her fuss and even cry for a few minutes, she will learn to get herself to sleep without relying on you. Different babies have different crying patterns. Some babies have a naptime crying like a bell curve. A gentle whimper builds to a mild wail, and then falls back to a whimper, and then sleep then follows. My daughter's typical naptime crying is crying for 10 minutes, then stopping, then a few minutes later starting again for 2 minutes, and then followed by sound sleep. My son, on the other hand, had a typical nap time of 1 to 2 minutes of angry, loud crying, and then stopped, and then went back to suck his fingers and prepare himself to sleep. Every time I feel like he's telling me I wanted to play for 2 more minutes before nap time. Listen to your baby's nap time cries, so you will be calm and know what is normal for your baby. Some babies might be selective about which nap time he cries. Just be patient and try to understand the cries. When you understand your baby's crying pattern, it will be easier for you to identify and stay alert for the unusual cry, which you might need to call your pediatrician. High-pitched, piercing cry is a signal for bodily injury, and if persistent, you should call your pediatrician. A marked change in your baby's crying pattern might be a warning sign as well. Also, when your baby wakes up in the middle of his nap with a loud, piercing cry, might indicate a gas buildup or something in your breast milk from something you ate earlier. I remember my daughter once ate a good amount of purple potatoes when she was only 6 months old, and she had a loud piercing cry that sounded like she was in pain. We then checked her and found her unusual poop. We stopped the purple potato for a while until she turned over 1 year of age and her body is more mature to digest those types of food. You should respond immediately to your baby's abnormal crying. With the normal crying, here are the 3 steps to respond. Step number 1. Think about where your baby is in his routine. Is nap time finished? Or he needs to resettle himself during the middle of the nap? Is this his fussy time of the day? Is it nap time now? Basically, you have to think or determine the cause of the baby's crying, then you can respond accordingly. Step number 2. Listen for the types of cry. When your baby cries, you should simply stop, stay calm, and listen to the cry. Sometimes the crying ends as quickly as it begins, especially during nap time. Only by calmly listening can you determine the right response. There are many times when my son suddenly cries super loud and wakes me up from the middle of the night, and I click on my phone to see the camera and he is already falling back into his sound sleep. I didn't hear a thing until the next morning found himself playing happily in the crib, ready for his first meal of the day. Step number 3, take action. Sometimes the best action is no action at all. I am always confident of taking no action when my baby is changed with clean diapers, fed, and ready for nap time. I just let the baby learn how to fall asleep alone. There are times you might offer special time in mom's arms, which is totally fine. After your assessment, there are many options to handle your baby's cry. Remember, you cannot block your baby's cry all the time because you can't handle the sound of the cry. Although most of the time, offering mom's breast always comforts the baby, you should remember though that different comfort should be offered at different times. For example, feeding can comfort a hungry baby, but can't comfort a tired baby. A baby can receive comfort in many ways: a stroller ride, music, sleep, diaper changing, etc. Comfort can also come from different people, not just mom. Nursing can be the only form of comfort, and mom, too, finds peace in this reality. As a parent, you will gather wisdom through your day-to-day care of the baby. Learn to recognize your baby's different cries. Trust this knowledge and confidently respond accordingly. A wise parent is calm and will listen calmly, think, and then take action. Chapter 8. Colic, reflux, and the inconsolable baby. A PDF routine can bring a lot of peace and confidence to both the parent and the baby, but life is always unpredictable. What if your baby cries for food, but he's refusing your milk? Or what if he spits up in the middle of the sound nap? For those parents, the cause of their baby's discomfort might be a concern. In this chapter, we will talk about 3 medical conditions, and their common signs are crying and spitting up. If you sense something's not right for your baby, even if your baby still shows weight gain, you should seek immediate medical help for the peace of mind and your baby's health. 1. Crying and colic. Colic affects 20% of the infant population, typically shows between weeks 2 to 4 and ends generally by the 3rd month. Colicky baby is irritable nearly all the time. Symptoms include piercing cries combined with the signs of acute stomach distress, folding of the legs, flailing arms, inconsolable crying, and passing gas. It is not a digestive disorder as it might look like. Unfortunately, there is no medical cure for colic. The good news is that babies typically outgrow colic. Here are some suggestions from experienced moms if your baby is showing signs of colic. Always consult your pediatrician to find reasons why your baby has excessive speed up and crying. Seek a second opinion if you feel your concerns are not taken seriously. Find out what works for your baby since every baby is different. Some parents find unwrapping the baby helpful, others find a warm bath or swing or changing formulas helps better. Breastfeeding moms can start by eliminating gas-producing foods: beans, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, onions, and garlic, or any spicy foods, dairy foods, caffeine, and alcohol. Be systematic so that you can identify a type of food which is causing an issue. There will be noticeable decrease in your baby's symptoms if food is the reason. Pay special attention not allowing your colic baby around the secondhand smoke environment. Pacifier might help make your baby feel better. It also reduces SIDS rates. Colicky baby needs to be burped frequently. A bottle specifically designed to reduce swallowing of air might help if you're using a bottle. After feeding, lay your baby across your knees, stomach down, and gently massage his back. The pressure from knees against the baby's abdomen may help relieve his discomfort. Avoid rapid movements. Flickering of your TV screen is an example. always offering a soothing environment for young infants. Some babies can be comforted by rhythmic motion, steady sounds, white noise, continuous noise, or even vibrations from household appliances such as dishwashers, vacuum cleaner, or washer or dryer. Last but not least, this is very important. Just as your flight attendant always asks you to put your own oxygen mask first before helping others. Ask to help, even if it is just for a short period of time. This is difficult to do during stressful situations. Just keep in mind that your baby will eventually outgrow the colic situation. Now for the gastroesophageal reflux, which we will refer to as GER for the rest of the chapter, and gastroesophageal reflux disease, which we will refer to as GERD for the rest of the chapter. Let's first look at the reflux. Reflux decreases as the baby's digestive system matures. It is estimated that around 3 to 5% of newborns in the US have mild to severe reflux symptoms for the first few months of life. Reflux is due to an immature sphincter valve between the stomach and the esophagus. When working properly, the valve opens to allow us to swallow, vomit, and close immediately afterwards. Reflux occurs when the sphincter valve stays relaxed when it is not supposed to, causing food mix with stomach acid to back up into the esophagus and throat, causing burning sensation. Reflux typically presents itself in the infant's early weeks of life, and babies typically are happy, thriving, and easy to console, and they outgrow it. But when babies have severe reflux and they have developed a feeding aversion when they associate feeding with pain, and the condition can advance that baby to have significant weight loss, creating a failure to thrive. The baby is said to have GERD when reflux requires advanced medical attention beyond observation. GERD babies crying are hard to console because they are in pain. When doctors prescribe medication that blocks stomach acid production, improvement will show within 2 days and substantial improvement will show within 14 days. GERD is a serious digestive problem in newborns that is missed because it is often quickly labeled as colic. GER doesn't require medical treatment because the baby is growing well and just causes spitting up. GERD causes intense pain and will lead to feeding aversion if not treated. GERD requires medication to decrease gastric acid production, but sometimes calls for surgical repair. In addition to medication, consider food source and feeding position. Holding a baby at a 30-degree angle helps reduce reflux episodes, whether breast or bottle feeding. PDF still works if your infant has colic or even GER or GERD. The general routine and feed-wake-sleep cycle tips also apply to colic or reflux babies. There might be challenges because of the baby's reflux though. Let's discover how colic and reflux issues affect feed-wake-sleep cycles. Consider feeding your reflux baby more often than 2.5 hours to 3 hours as generally recommended under the PDF method. This is because a full stomach might worsen his reflux. Feeding more often will make it easier on your baby. Try to avoid making your baby too full or too hungry. In the case of babies diagnosed with reflux who spit up, the American Academy of Pediatrics suggests not offering another feeding, but instead waiting until the next feeding. A well-established sleep pattern can take longer to achieve for reflux babies. Keep your baby's environment soothing, comfortable, stimulation-free, and quiet. Turn off TV and loud music. Avoid jumping, jiggling, or excessive back patting. Don't give yourself extra pressure if your baby is not following the plan as the book described. Try to keep your baby in an upright position 30 minutes after each feeding or elevate his crib slightly. Do not go over more than 30 degrees. If a particular feeding is dragging out longer than 40 minutes, just stop feeding and put the baby back into his crib. If he falls asleep, he will wake up hungrier. Trying too hard to give a full feeding is too stressful to both parent and the baby. Sometimes when breastfeeding moms have an overflowing supply of milk, which makes the reflux baby swallow too fast and swallow air, when this happens, direct the initial spray of milk into a tower and bring the baby back to breast. For formula-fed reflux babies, it might be helpful to thicken formula with some rice cereal. You have to purchase special nipples made for this purpose, and always check with your pediatrician first. If your pediatrician recommends any medicine, always ask about side effects. Some side effects include stomach cramps, which may look like colic. Avoid pulling the diaper too tight. This is to avoid pressure on the baby's stomach. Sleep can be a real challenge if your baby wakes up screaming earlier because of reflux. Swaddling, pacifier, blackout curtains, white noise are all helpful to make the baby feel better and willing to sleep. It might be helpful for you to come in and gently rock the baby through the cycle if he habitually wakes up 45 minutes into his nap. This is suitable for babies up to 3 months old to avoid the baby becoming overstimulated by his crying. For babies older than 3 months old, just use a pacifier when he wakes up or whatever makes the baby comfortable. You can even walk or gently rock him until he's tired again and put him back to sleep. Typical signs of reflux are crying through feedings, not latching on, very small feedings, and crying until exhausted. Reflux babies typically don't like to being laid down on their back position. AAP suggests a back position because of C's concern. My babies sometimes make themselves sleep on their side or stomach after I put them to sleep with their back position. You need to discuss with your pediatrician what is best and safest for your baby. Always remember that one step at a time. Some days might be super stressful and challenging, but focusing on the long-term side of the feed-awake sleep cycles. Be patient with your baby and yourself. Always remember that caring for newborns, especially ones with reflux, is a very stressful task for the whole family. Parents should seek medical help when their baby has reflux. Parents should also seek help from other family members to care for their baby so parents can rest. It should be a team effort. Chapter 9, Topic Pool. In this chapter, we are going to talk about some topics that are helpful to think through before your baby arrives in order to help you to better manage the unexpected difficulties. I skipped a very tiny portion from the book for this chapter, such as infant seat, infant swings, and playpen, to avoid duplication, just because we have already covered in book summaries from previous chapters. Now, before we dive into the specific baby equipment, I wanted to say that the most essential items for baby equipment are the crib and car seat. Do not worry if you don't have a huge budget, as babies don't really care about fancy, expensive stuff. Other useful items include a high chair, stroller, changing table, and a playpen can be borrowed from a friend, or you can buy them from a garage sale. Baby monitor. We find the baby monitor quite useful when we run around the house to do house chores. But remember, it is not a medical device and it can't prevent seeds. Also remember not to overdo it. Some parents like to put the monitor on all day long, which we find can be very exhausting. Sometimes there can be some connection issues from the monitor to the phone, which you have to keep refreshing, which is a bit annoying to me. Car seat. Car seat can be around the longest compared with other baby equipment. It is also very important to keep your baby safe, so we like to make an investment for that. Initially, we put some blankets or clothes to support each side of my baby's head to keep it from rolling side to side to protect the necks. Rear-facing car seats are the safest. Crib. Many suggest babies switch from their crib to a toddler bed around 18 months. I think we didn't do that until babies turned 2.5 years old. You should also get a good quality and firm mattress to match the crib. The guardrail should be at least 26 inches above the top of the mattress to prevent any climb out when the baby is older and like to climb. Crib slats should be no more than 2 3/8 inches apart. A crib bumper guard is safer than pillows or stuffed animals, which can cause suffocation when the baby is young. Also avoid putting the crib too close to heaters, which can be too dry or other dangerous environments. Bathing. Don't give a full bath to your baby until the umbilical cord has fallen off, which typically happens around 10 to 14 days after birth on average. You can give a sponge bath to your newborn because you can't immerse your baby in water while the cord is still attached. Don't use too much soap, as those make the baby's body itchy and flaky. You should clean the cord area by using a cotton swab and some rubbing alcohol, or using alcohol wipes after each diaper change. When you give a bath to your baby after the cord falls off, you should be very careful not to leave your baby alone in the water even for just a minute for safety concerns. Blanket time. Blanket time facilitates early learning by allowing a baby to concentrate and serve as a useful mobile boundary. You can put your baby on a blanket as soon as he can hold his or her head up. This provides a lot of flexibility to different caregivers because of its mobility. Cesarean birth. The C-section or cesarean birth is accomplished through an incision in the abdominal wall and uterus. Mom and a baby must both endure this major surgery, and the proper rest for both are a must. C-section babies experience no delays in sleeping through the night in the PDF population. While bonding or emotional connections with your baby is important, no major impact will happen if mom and baby have to be temporarily separated at birth. This bonding deficit created in the first few hours or even days after birth is minimal in the future. Cradle cap. This happens because baby's new skin cells grow rapidly and faster than the old cells can fall off, leaving the old cells stuck to the new ones. Cradle cap appear as crusty or oily patches, often on the baby's head, ears, and forehead. It is not something to be worried about. Your pediatrician might just give you some cream along with the advice to monitor it. Diapers, hygiene, and rashes. As a general rule, you change your baby's diaper at each feeding. Now, because your goal is to help your baby sleep throughout the night, the one exception to this diaper change rule is after the middle of the night feeding, unless it is soaked or soiled or accompanied by diaper rash. Another suggestion is to use a larger sized diaper at night when your baby begins to stretch his nighttime sleep to 8 or more hours. There's always a risk of diaper rashes. The reasons might be allergies, infections, teething, or sitting on a messy diaper for too long. A good habit is to change your baby's diaper very often and keep it as clean and dry as possible. Over-the-counter cream is always helpful as a prevention method, but if you sense the diaper rash were too serious, seek medical help soon before it turns to serious rashes. Tips to diaper change. When you clean your baby, always work from the front to back, especially baby girls, to avoid the bacteria spreading to the front. For boys, holding a clean diaper over his genitals is a good habit. The exposure to air often causes boys to pee with no regard for who is in the line of fire. Ask my husband how much pain it is when he wipes my son during those early months. Fevers, sickness in newborns. If your newborn shows signs of sickness or has a fever above 100.4 degrees, contact your pediatrician immediately. A fever in young babies is of great concern to your pediatrician because the fever shows the baby's body is fighting off some infection with his or her immune system, and because the young baby's immune system is more vulnerable to infections. Grandparents. Be cautious of having a high-powered, take-charge grandparents come right after the baby's birth. When we implemented the PDF method, some grandparents were really concerned about putting my infant baby into the crib to sleep by himself. They simply can't accept it after their inappropriate experience of sleeping props. Just remember, the baby is yours and you are taking care of the babies, not the grandparents. While some might have grandparents come permanently taking care of their babies, you should really evaluate the pros and cons. But if that is the final decision, you might have to teach them the benefit of the PDF approach. Microwave and the bottle. It is important to keep bottles and nipples clean and sterilized. There are cages that you can purchase which hold the nipples and other small items so you can put in your dishwasher. I will put some links below this video. There are also sterilizers that you can just put in your microwave to do the job, which is very convenient. Remember, when you heat a bottle of formula using the microwave, be sure to shake the bottle well after heating because microwave heat food unevenly. It is always recommended to place the bottle of expressed breast milk in a bowl of warm water because excessive heat can destroy the nutrient quality of expressed breast milk. There are also some bottle warmers specifically designed that does the same job. Pacifiers and thumb sucking. As the previous chapter already talked about some good benefits of pacifiers, there are two things to keep in mind. If you decide to breastfeed, you can't introduce pacifiers too early. This is because the baby might prefer pacifier over mom's breast. 2. Since a pacifier can provide pressure, it might become addictive. Infants also suck thumbs or fingers out of habit for comfort. Infants can be habitually attached to the thumb. My daughter likes sucking her fingers and my son likes his thumb a lot. Good news is that they typically give up thumb sucking on their own when they grow. Premature birth. Babies born prior to 37 completed weeks of pregnancy are considered premature. The closer to full term the baby is born, the less risk there is for serious complications associated with premature babies. Sometimes it causes some feeding challenges with preemies because they are sluggish eaters and only take smaller amounts. Some pediatrics usually recommend the calorie and vitamin-enriched formulas or that fortifiers to be added to breast milk. Postpartum depression or PPD. Right after the baby is born, mom has to fight both body injury or body pain and fatigue because she has to constantly wake up to feed her baby every 1 or 2 hours. This is not an easy task. If you feel you have strong mood swings and find it difficult to accomplish minimal household tasks and with tears all the time, even after your 6-week postpartum checkup, it might be signs of postpartum depression. There are 3 levels of postpartum hormone imbalance. The first level is called the baby blues. This typically happens right after birth and peaks around 4th or 5th day postpartum and disappears within 2 weeks. Level 2, postpartum depression, which can set in a few days or weeks after birth, and it is more serious than just the baby blues. Postpartum depressed moms are often anxious, irritable, weepy, and not able to concentrate. A mother can greatly minimize the symptoms by keeping the baby and herself on a good routine, which allows quality rest and a good nutrition. A consult from her OB/GYN might be necessary if it doesn't improve after several weeks. The third level and the most serious level is postpartum psychosis. This is the most serious emotional state. Symptoms include delusions, suicidal or homicidal thoughts, disorganized thinking, and hallucinations. A previous bipolar disorder mom can be more likely to have postpartum psychosis. This should be treated with a sense of urgency for the benefit of everyone. Solid foods. Your breast milk or formula alone can't provide enough nutrition to your baby when they turn 6 months of age. That doesn't mean you have to stop feeding your baby breast milk, but you need to introduce additional foods to your baby's daily routine. Your baby must be able to control his neck and head muscles and sit upright before you start solids. If your baby is showing signs of hunger before that age, even though he is receiving 32 ounces of formula a day, this might also be an indicator that he's ready for solids. For breastfeeding babies, if the baby had 6 to 8 full feedings in a 24-hour period might mean your baby is ready for solids as well. For any baby that has a well-established nighttime sleep pattern, any abnormal waking at night between age 4 to 6 months might also signal he's ready for solids. You can start with some baby rice cereal first, and remember the rules that we already talked about in the previous chapter summary. Never introduce more than one type of new food to your baby's day, and always introduce new food earlier to avoid risks of interrupted nighttime sleep because of food allergy. Swaddling a baby. Swaddles provide comfort and helps to calm the baby. It also minimizes the startle reflex that can sometimes wake up a sleeping baby. You can use a blanket or swaddle blanket to do that job. There are also many swaddle sleep sacks in the market, which is super convenient in case you can't swaddle your baby in a blanket. And also follow your baby's lead on when to stop swaddling. Teething. Teething typically starts between 5 to 7 months, and it happens when a tooth begins to break through the gum and is part of normal growth. Generally, the lower 2 teeth come in first, followed by the upper middle 2 teeth. Around 2 years of age, babies should have close to all 20 of their baby teeth. Teething should not interfere with breastfeeding since the sucking reflex used while nursing is done by the tongue and palate, not the gums. Teething, however, will make your baby fuzzy, irritable, light feeling. This might have some mild disruption to your baby's sleep, but not enough to override a well-established sleep pattern. You might also want to take your baby to a dentist for a baby dental checkup. Weaning your baby. Typically around 4 to 6 months of age, you will add solids to your baby's diet in addition to breast milk or formula. From that moment on, weaning is a gradual process. When ready, you can start the weaning process by eliminating one feeding at a time, then a few days later drop another feeding. Replace each feeding with some formula or milk. You can also introduce sippy cups around that time and replace the bottle to the sippy cup as well. Chapter 10. Multiple Births. The Endless Party. Babies treasure to us. We do want more babies, but we have to decide if we have enough time and energy for more babies. Multiple babies accompanied by multiple joy and also multiple work. The question is, does that multiple work means a simple addition or multiplication? Today, we are going to discuss topics around multiple babies. Multiple births typically make the babies preemies because they have a higher risk for prematurity. Your babies might come home at different times as they reach safe weights and develop certain skills. They might come home with apnea and heart monitors. The apnea monitor provides assurance that a baby is breathing. The biggest challenge for multiple babies is taking care of tiny babies in multiple at the same time. When babies are very young and tiny, it is okay to put 2 or even 3 babies in one crib, as they will not be able to move around much on their own. You should separate them once they start to wiggle around in the crib though to prevent suffocation risk. Now diapers. Multiple babies will need a lot more diapers, so be prepared for that. Some use cloth diapers to save money. However, considering the time and inconvenience of washing a smelly diaper every day, plus the workload of welcoming multiple tiny babies home, I think disposable diapers make a lot more sense during the first couple weeks. You will need a lot of help from either family or friends. Parents can't handle multiples all by themselves. Again, raising babies should be teamwork, especially raising multiple babies. We already know that breast milk has lots of benefits for the baby. Mothers of twins or triplets can still breastfeed. But of course, a triplets mom will naturally have more difficulty establishing breast milk than twin mothers. Breastfeeding will become easier once established and learned by mother and baby. That means the beginning of establishing a good breastfeeding relationship is very difficult. Once you go through that difficult beginning, everything will be easier. For multiples, if the baby stays in NICU for some time and does not come home with you directly, You might want to use an electric pump to pump milk persistently if you decide to breastfeed. This will make breastfeeding much easier later. You can pump milk and give it to the baby while they stay in an ICU. If your baby has low birth weight and is premature, they will be super sleepy in the beginning. Try your best to feed them, but do not try for more than 30 minutes every 2.5 to 3 hours. You can try to feed and burp each baby for 30 minutes and then put them back to sleep. Do this even if they suck ineffectively and speed up. But don't try refeeding if the baby speeds up and the 30 minutes limit is up. If your baby speeds up 10 minutes or so into the feeding, you can refeed until the time is up. Remember, the wet diapers are a good assessment of a baby's food intake. They should have 6 to 8 wet diapers each day. With multiple babies, it is hard to keep track of each baby's diaper and feeding chart. You can be creative. Use different colors for each baby and write them down. When your baby matures, everything will be easier. Just to remember to adhere closely to the feed, wake, sleep order for each baby. Do not change the order of those 3 activities, except for the late night feedings where there's no wake time, and for premature babies who are not neurologically mature enough to tolerate wake time. With triplets, you may choose to stagger your baby's schedule if you are the only feeder. While if you have another helper to help you feed, you might want to feed 2 babies at the same time. There will always be a faster eating baby and a slower eating baby. You might want to use that advantage and feed the slower eater first and the faster eater later, so they both can catch wake time together. With multiple babies, when one wakes earlier from sleep, resist the temptation to reward him or her with a feeding. Remember the feed, wake, sleep order, and instead of feeding, try patting and lead the baby back to sleep until the feeding time comes. Good news is that with the additional challenges that comes with multiples, your rewards will be multiplied. Sleep is very important to everyone, including your triplets. You should focus more on baby sleep rather than calories. Better sleeper will get more nutrition because they are better rested, have better digestion and better weight gain, and are ready to suck strongly. In the early days, your newborn triplets will always seem to sleep. As they grow older, wake time will gradually emerge as a separate activity. Remember to always put them down to sleep while awake. With multiple babies, the self-soothing skills become more important, especially when they are sick. They will seek sleep when they are tired because they learned the self-comforting skills early on. When your multiple babies are sharing a room from the birth, they will not wake each other up. They will learn to shut out each other's crying so you don't have to separate them when one is fussing. You can go into the room and pet the fussy one every few minutes. Your goal is to put them down awake, allowing them to fall asleep on their own without a transition process, such as rocking or patting. One common pitfall for parents is to allow babies to fall asleep during their wake time at the chair or wake time swings. Remember, you have to start and finish the feed, wake, sleep cycle in a fairly structured way. Parents get too busy and often find babies falling asleep while playing. Occasionally, events like that will not be a problem, but babies eventually need to fall asleep by themselves in the crib. Parents can try to put the baby wide awake in their crib when they are not that busy. Another tip is do not lengthen the baby's nap time until they are sleeping at least 9 to 10 hours at night. If your baby is not sleeping through 8 hours a night at 4 to 6 months, try using a strict 3-hour feeding schedule during the day to help them distinguish night from day. Between 6 to 8 months of age, your babies discover each other and the party begins. They won't wake up by each other's crying, but they will be woken up by each other's play and laughing. Try to place some quiet toys in their crib after they fall asleep, so when they wake up earlier, they can play quietly on their own, and please strongly discourage your baby from climbing out of their crib on their own. You don't have to focus too much on wake time when you initially bring them home, but you will soon realize that they wake more and more and you need to introduce wake time activities. Reclining upright seat is a good choice as they discourage speed up, and the baby can sit in it and watch the outside world. It is also good to fit them when they are too small for an official high chair. You don't have to buy each baby everything in the early days. For wake time, you can rotate the toys with the multiples because they get tired or bored with the same toy pretty soon anyways. A playpen for each baby might be a good investment though. As triplets grow, they always find someone similar to their size constantly grab toys from them or grab themselves inside one playpen. If you keep them in different playpen, they can then do whatever they want themselves with great freedom and no one will interrupt them. Playpen also provides lots of freedom for moms too. You don't have to treat all the babies as a unit all the time. That means you don't have to do the feed, wake, sleep all together. You can feed one and have another one play at the reclining seat, or have a helper helping you feed while you take a different baby for a walk for wake time. Now, children sense your attitude from a very early age. If you see them as a burden, they will respond in a burden and an annoying way. If you see them as precious treasure, they will respond in a happy corporate way. I think carrot kids grow too fast. Sometimes I want them to grow slowly. They act very differently each week to week, and each stage of their development is very precious to us. Last but not least, husbands should always help at home, especially for multiples. The more you cherish and serve your wife, the happier your wife will be. She will be more willing to share and enjoy you only if she feels your help and support. Remember, a happy wife brings you a happy life.